Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. At 6:30 in the morning, the sunlight through the muslin curtains gently sprinkled every corner of the bedroom, and the air was filled with the faint aroma of coffee. Ethan rolled over and reached out to touch his side, but came up empty. He opened his eyes and saw that Chloe was no longer in the bed. Only the residual warmth of her body remained on the sheets. "Is breakfast ready, dear?" Ethan asked in a raised voice, a hint of lazy tenderness in his voice. "In a minute." Chloe's voice came from the kitchen, sounding as crisp and pleasant as usual. Ethan gets up and dresses and walks to the bathroom to wash up. In the mirror, he already had a few fine lines at the corners of his eyes, but he felt that his life had never been so happy and fulfilled. He's been married to Chloe for 24 years, and their daughter Olivia has graduated from college and found a great job in California. Everything is so beautiful and satisfying. Ethan stepped out of the bathroom to see breakfast already set on the table. Toast toasted golden brown, bacon and eggs fried just right, and a cup of steaming coffee. Chloe is standing at the table, smiling at him. "Good morning, dear," Chloe said. "Good morning." Ethan walked over and gave Chloe a soft kiss on the forehead. "What a great day. Breakfast is so hearty." "Nothing, just wanted to make you a nice meal," Chloe said, an imperceptible flash of panic in her eyes. Ethan doesn't notice Chloe's strangeness as he sits down and begins to enjoy his breakfast. The two of them had a chat, chatting about parents and work chores. Everything seemed so normal and cozy. However, Ethan gradually senses that something is wrong. Chloe seemed a little distracted today. She kept picking up her cell phone frequently to check it and then quickly putting it down again as if she was hiding something. Moreover, her attitude toward herself this morning seemed overly enthusiastic in a somewhat deliberate manner. "Have you been hiding something from me lately?" Ethan asked tentatively. Chloe's body stiffens slightly as she puts down the knife and fork in her hand and looks up at Ethan with mixed emotions in her eyes. "Ethan," she said, taking a deep breath, "I want to confess something to you." Ethan's heart sank, and he had a bad feeling. I cheated." Chloe's voice was soft, but every word exploded like a heavy bomb in Ethan's mind. Ethan froze. He couldn't believe his ears. Cheating? How do those two words come to be associated with Chloe? "What did you say?" Ethan's voice trembled with how much he hoped it was all just his hallucination. "I'm with Daniel." Chloe lowers her head, afraid to look Ethan in the eye. "Daniel?" Ethan's mind quickly flashed to a face that was Chloe's boss, a man of style and career. Ethan had met him once at the company's annual meeting, when he'd clinked glasses with Chloe. "When did you start?" Ethan asked with difficulty, each word seeming to be squeezed from his throat. "A few months ago." Chloe's voice dropped even lower. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have done it, but Are you going to continue?" Ethan cut Chloe off. He didn't want to hear any explanations. He just wanted to know when this nightmare was going to end. Chloe was silent, and her silence was like a sharp knife that pierced Ethan's heart. "So, you're going to continue?" Ethan's voice rose an octave as he could no longer control his emotions. "Chloe, we've been married for 24 years. 24 years. How could you do this to me?" "Ethan, listen to me. It's not what you think." Chloe tried to explain, but Ethan was beyond listening. "Enough." Ethan slammed the table and stood up. "I don't want to hear any more explanations from you. You disappoint me too much." The cups and plates on the table shuddered with a crisp rattle, like Ethan's broken heart. He turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door with a thud. Over the next few days, Ethan's world came crashing down. He couldn't believe that his wife, with whom he had been with for 24 years, had betrayed him and was planning to continue the relationship. He was overwhelmed with anger, pain, and despair. Ethan starts to lose sleep. He can't sleep all night and his mind keeps replaying his past with Chloe. They used to be so in love, so happy. Why did they become what they are now? To avoid arguments and to escape reality, Chloe moves to another room. Ethan lies alone in his empty double bed, feeling more alone and helpless than ever. Ethan starts to get quiet. He doesn't talk to Chloe anymore. He doesn't even want to see her. He shut himself up in his room, not eating or drinking. like a wounded beast, licking his wounds alone. A week went by and Ethan's mood didn't get any better. He knew he couldn't go on like this. He had to do something. He began consulting with a divorce attorney to learn about the legal process and his rights and obligations. The attorney told him that based on his current situation, he could fight for most of the property, including the house they are living in now. A few days after consulting with his lawyer, Ethan begins to secretly investigate Chloe and Daniel. He checked Chloe's cell phone when she wasn't looking. Even though Chloe had deleted some of the messages, he found some clues in her cell phone. Ethan discovers that Chloe and Daniel are often chatting on WeChat, with very flirty content. Not only do they call each other darling, but they often send intimate photos. Once, while Chloe was taking a bath, she received a message on her cell phone. The screen lit up, and Ethan inadvertently saw the message. "I miss you. Will you come to my place tonight?" Ethan's heart goes cold. He didn't realize Chloe was in this deep. He decides not to hesitate any longer. He's going to make Chloe and Daniel pay for their behavior. After discovering this information, he began to become more alert and sensitive. He noticed that Chloe had been coming home late in recent months under the pretext of working overtime, and that every time she came home she looked tired but had an inexplicable sense of excitement. Her cell phone is always with her, even under her pillow when she sleeps. Ethan secretly checks Chloe's cell phone while she's asleep. He knows Chloe's cell phone code because it's their anniversary. He opens Chloe's cell phone and sure enough, he finds some new messages. That night after Daniel's message, Chloe replied, "Yes, I'll be there later." Ethan's hands began to shake and he felt a wave of vertigo. He holds back his anger and continues to look through Chloe's cell phone. He realizes that Chloe and Daniel are not only chatting on WeChat, but also talking on the phone frequently and for long periods of time. To further confirm his suspicions, Ethan installs a hidden recording device in his home. He placed the recording device under the nightstand in his bedroom so that he could record Chloe and Daniel's conversations. A few days later, Ethan got the recording. He hid alone in his study, put on his headphones, and began to listen to the recording. Chloe and Daniel's voices come on the recording, and the content of their conversation makes Ethan furious. "Honey, did you miss me?" It was Daniel's voice. "Of course I miss you. I think about you every day." That's Chloe's voice. "Me too. I can't wait to see you." "I'd like to see you too, but Ethan seems to be getting a little suspicious of me lately, and I need to be careful." "Don't worry, baby. I'll protect you." "Uh-huh. By the way, when are you divorcing your wife?" "Soon. I've had a showdown with her, and she's agreed to a divorce." "Great. Then we can be together soon." "Yeah, baby. I can't wait." Ethan couldn't listen to it anymore. He took off his headphones and slammed them hard on the floor. He didn't realize that Chloe was so heartless that she not only betrayed him, but wanted to marry Daniel. Ethan felt a pang of heartache, and he felt like he was suffocating. He walked over to the window and opened it, letting the cold air blow into the room. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He's determined to get revenge, and he's going to make Chloe and Daniel pay for their behavior. He picked up his cell phone and dialed a number. "Hey, it's me, Ethan. I need you to do me a favor." Ethan's eyes turned cold, and the seeds of vengeance took root in his heart and grew wildly. He knew that from this moment on, his life would change forever. He is no longer the gentle and caring husband, but a vengeful man consumed by anger and hatred. Ethan hangs up the phone with a complicated gleam in his eye. He knew that once the road to revenge had begun, there was no turning back. But he has no choice. He must make Chloe and Daniel pay for their betrayal. A few days later, rumors of Chloe and her boss Daniel began to circulate in small circles within their respective companies. Daniel, an executive of a well-known company, and his scandalous relationship with his subordinate Chloe began to circulate as some of his industry rivals learned of the affair. The gossip took wing and began to affect not only Daniel and Chloe, but also the company Daniel worked for. On Ethan's side, the company he works for just happens to have an opportunity to travel to the California branch as a general manager in charge of exploring new markets. The company Ethan works for and the company Daniel works for are partners and do some business. Ethan has the company's outstanding talent, outstanding ability, and Ethan and Daniel's wife Susan know each other. Ethan company side of the senior management also slightly heard of Daniel and Chloe things. Ethan himself wants to get out of this heartbreaking place, and at the same time, he's acutely aware of California, a whole new battleground where he'll be strategizing and letting his plan for revenge grow like a snowball. So, Ethan took the initiative to apply for the position and succeeded in getting the opportunity with his outstanding ability. So Ethan sets about laying out his revenge. He knows that gossip won't be enough to bring Daniel and Chloe down. He'll have to come up with hard evidence that will give them no place to hide. Ethan started acting anonymously. He signed up for a new email account and, using a public network, sent intimate photographs of Chloe and Daniel, as well as portions of the chat logs, to Daniel's company's disciplinary department, to Daniel's wife, Susan, and to several of Daniel's major competitors in his industry. To add credibility, he also intentionally left clues in the email that led them to dig for more information. For example, in his email to Susan, he mentioned that he could check Daniel's hotel room and spending history for a recent period of time. In the email to the competitor, it was implied that Daniel may have been guilty of irregularities in one of the projects and that the investigation could start in that direction. He had timed the information like several carefully placed time bombs that would detonate one by one over the next few weeks. Meanwhile, Ethan prepares for his trip to California while continuing to surreptitiously gather evidence of Daniel's workplace violations. Through his investigation, he learned that Daniel had used his position for personal gain on several company projects and had made some unethical deals. Ethan compiled this information into a detailed report and secretly contacted one of Daniel's management counterparts, Kevin, who was in a comparable position at his business rival. He provided Kevin with Daniel's blackmail through several anonymous phone calls and emails and offered to provide more evidence in due course. Kevin's company has always viewed Daniel's company as their biggest competitor, and now they have a chance to take down their rivals, and they're not going to let it go. Ethan had an in-depth conversation with Chloe during the last week before he left. He no longer hides his anger and disappointment, but lays out some of the evidence he has in front of Chloe. "Look what you've done." Ethan slammed a stack of photos on the table of Chloe and Daniel making out in various settings. "You think you're doing a seamless job?" Chloe's face instantly turned pale, and tears came to her eyes as she shakily picked up the photo. "Ethan, let me explain." "Explain? What else do you have to explain?" Ethan said coldly, "Everyone in his circle knows about you and Daniel. Susan knows too, and you've embarrassed me. I know I'm sorry, but I really love Daniel." Chloe cried. "Love? What do you know about love?" Ethan's voice was filled with contempt. "What you call love is betrayal. It's hurt. You've ruined this family and my trust in you. I'll make you pay for what you've done." Ethan left those words and turned to leave the room. At the same time, he looked for an opportunity to have a showdown with Daniel. At a cafe near Daniel's company, Ethan made an appointment to meet Daniel. "Daniel, behave yourself." Ethan opened the door and his tone was full of threats. "You know in your own heart what you've done. Don't think you can hide it from the world. One day, you will pay for your behavior." Daniel's face paled as he forced himself to say, "Ethan, I don't understand what you're talking about." "You don't understand? Or are you pretending to be confused?" Ethan sneered. "You think I really don't know about you and Chloe? I just didn't want to break you guys up. But now, you guys have touched my bottom line, and I won't tolerate you anymore. What do you want?" Daniel panicked a little. "This has nothing to do with Chloe. It's all my fault? Nothing to do with her? You expect me to believe that?" Ethan closes in on Daniel, almost to his face. "You destroyed my family, and I'm going to make you feel the same way. I'll ruin your reputation and make it impossible for you to make it in this business." With that said, Ethan gave Daniel a hard stare and turned to leave. Daniel sat in place, his face blue and trembling. He knew that Ethan was for real this time. Ethan begins to pack his bags, ready to leave the city of betrayal and hurt. He put away the pictures of himself with Chloe and everything related to her in a box and sealed it up. These were things he didn't want to see or touch again. Before leaving, Ethan had a long talk with his daughter Olivia. He tells Olivia that he's going to California for a while for work and that he may not be back for a long time. "Daddy, are you and Mommy getting a divorce?" Olivia asked sensitively. Ethan was silent for a moment, then said, "Olivia, grown-up things are complicated, and you don't understand them yet. But you have to remember that Daddy will always love you. But Olivia was about to say something else, but was interrupted by Ethan. Olivia, listen to me. Ethan crouched down and looked Olivia levelly in the eyes. There are things that you don't need to know right now. All you need to know is that everything Daddy did, he did to protect you, to give you a better future. Chloe did something wrong, and she's going to pay for her actions. Do you understand? Olivia nodded plausibly. She didn't know exactly what was happening, but she could feel her father's pain and determination. Daddy, I'm going to miss you. Olivia hugged Ethan, tears welling up in her eyes. Daddy will miss you too. Ethan hugged Olivia tightly, his heart full. Saying goodbye to Olivia, Ethan flies to California alone. The moment the plane took off, he looked out the window at the shrinking city and was overcome with emotion. He knew that a new page would be turned in his life, and what awaited him would be a journey full of challenges and unknowns. On the plane, Ethan closed his eyes and began to sort out his revenge plan in his head. He knew that this battle for revenge had only just begun, and that he would have to take it step by step in order to achieve ultimate victory. The California sun may be bright, but a shadow of vengeance hangs over his heart. He was like a lone chess player, carefully laying out his plans and waiting for the moment when he would kill his opponent with a single blow. The plane landed at LAX and Ethan stepped out of the cabin into the warm, dry California air with a hint of salty sea air. The warmth of the sun was pleasant, but it didn't lighten Ethan's mood. He knew that from this moment on, he would be alone in this strange land and begin his journey of revenge. Olivia was waiting at the exit of the airport and waved her arms excitedly as she saw Ethan come out, a big smile on her face. Daddy! Olivia ran over quickly and gave Ethan a big hug. Welcome to California. Ethan hugged Olivia tightly, feeling the warmth coming from her daughter, a wave of mixed emotions welling up in his heart. It was the only solace he felt after the betrayal and hurt he had experienced. Olivia, thanks for picking me up. Ethan's voice was a little husky. You're welcome with me. Olivia let go of Ethan and looked him up and down. Dad, you look a little haggard, exhausted from the trip? Fine. Ethan smiled. He didn't want Olivia to worry. Olivia drove Ethan back to her rented apartment, conveniently located near Santa Monica Beach. Ethan will be staying with Olivia for the time being until he can find suitable accommodation near the California branch. After settling in, Ethan began his new life in California. He quickly threw himself into the work, and with his outstanding ability and rich experience, he soon gained a firm foothold in the branch. He familiarizes himself with the new business while building rapport with his colleagues and preparing for his next revenge project. With Olivia's encouragement, Ethan begins to try to move on from his past. He attends social events and meets some new people, including a woman named Jessica. Jessica is an art curator with an outgoing and welcoming personality. She and Ethan have a lot in common, and they get along very well. This relaxed relationship allows Ethan to forget about his troubles for a while and feel a joy that has been missing for a long time. However, the relationship didn't last long. Due to work reasons, Jessica needs to transfer to New York, and the two have to part ways peacefully. This little episode makes Ethan realize that he hasn't completely let go of the past, and that the fire of revenge still burns in his heart. Meanwhile, Ethan's plan for revenge is quietly moving forward. He kept tabs on Daniel and Chloe through previously established contacts, particularly the executive named Kevin from Daniel's business rival company. He learns that the whistleblower material he sent anonymously has begun to fester, and that Daniel's company has set up a special investigation team to look into Daniel. And Chloe is having a tough time in the company because of the implication. As the investigation progressed, more and more dark information came to light. Kevin's rival company took advantage of the situation and used the information they had to put the squeeze on Daniel's company. Daniel is burnt out for a while, not only dealing with the company's investigation, but also with attacks from competitors. Ethan also learns through the internet that Daniel's wife, Susan, has filed a divorce lawsuit after learning the truth and has requested a division of the couple's joint assets. Since Daniel is the one at fault, Susan will most likely get most of the property and may even leave Daniel out of the house. The situation is even worse for Chloe, who has been suspended from the company and is having a hard time finding a job in the same position. People who once swooned over her now shunned her. Ethan stood on the beach in Santa Monica and watched the sunset color the sea a golden yellow, but his heart did not feel the slightest joy. He knows that this is just the beginning of his revenge, and he wants to make Daniel and Chloe feel like they've been betrayed. One night, Olivia takes Ethan to a friend's birthday party. The party was held in a lively bar with people dancing to the music. It was there that Ethan met the charming Michelle. Michelle, a little-known painter, is beautiful and elegant, and she immediately catches Ethan's attention. The two had a great conversation and were impressed with each other. Over the next few days, Ethan and Michelle begin dating frequently, and their relationship quickly heats up. However, it doesn't last long, and just when Ethan thinks he's finally ready to start a new life, an unexpected event pulls him back into the vortex of revenge once again. One evening, Ethan and Michelle were dining at a restaurant. Just as the two were enjoying a romantic candlelight dinner, a man suddenly rushed in and pointed at Michelle, shouting, "You bitch! How dare you steal a man behind my back?" Michelle's face instantly turned white as she stood up in horror and tried to explain, "Richard, listen to me. It's not what you think." As it turns out, the man was Michelle's husband, Richard. He has always suspected that Michelle is having an affair, so he secretly follows her and finds her with Ethan. Ethan felt a wave of dizziness, never realizing that he would end up in the same situation as Chloe. He looked at the angry man in front of him, remembering the pain and despair he had felt, and his heart was filled with bitterness and helplessness. "I don't want to hear you explain," Richard roared as he grabbed Michelle by the hair and dragged her out of the restaurant. Ethan froze for a few seconds, then quickly gave chase. When he saw Richard about to shove Michelle into a car, he rushed up and pushed Richard out of the way. "Let her go," Ethan roared. "What kind of a thing are you? How dare you meddle in my business?" Richard snarled, swinging his fist at Ethan. Ethan sidesteps Richard's punch and then punches him in the face. Richard stumbled a few steps and almost fell. "How dare you hit me? Do you know who I am?" Richard covered his face and said viciously, "I don't care who you are. You can't do this to her." Ethan exclaimed, pointing at Michelle. "This is between me and my wife. It has nothing to do with you." Richard was still about to make a move, but seeing Ethan's tall stature and fierce gaze scared him a little. "If you bother her again, I'll call the police," Ethan warned. Richard glared at Ethan, then drove off cursing. Ethan walked over to Michelle and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" Michelle shook her head, unable to stop the tears. "Thank you, Ethan." Ethan had mixed feelings in his heart, knowing that his relationship with Michelle could not possibly continue. He'd already been hurt once and didn't want to repeat it. "I'm sorry, Michelle. I didn't realize you were married," Ethan said. "I don't blame you. It's my fault. I shouldn't have hidden it from you," Michelle cried. Ethan sighed as he picked up Michelle and drove her home. Both were silent on the way back. This incident makes Ethan even more determined to take revenge. He began using social media with Olivia to post anonymously about Daniel and Chloe. They created anonymous accounts, publicized details of Daniel's personal gain from his position and his affair with Chloe, and cleverly channeled public opinion to portray them as morally corrupt and disillusioned in the workplace. At the same time, they also contacted some network V, asking them to help forwarding and commenting to further expand the influence of public opinion. "Dad, look at this comment." Olivia pointed to a comment on her phone screen and said, "This person said that he knew Daniel, that Daniel had always looked like a hypocrite in the company, and that he didn't realize that he was this kind of person behind his back." "And this one," Olivia said, pointing to another comment, "this one says that Chloe got to the top by relying on Daniel, and that she doesn't have any real skills at all." Ethan looked at the comments coldly, without the slightest fluctuation in his mind. He knew that the storm of public opinion, once started, would intensify until it had swallowed Daniel and Chloe whole. Since Daniel and Chloe were not previously in the same city, public opinion and work hit at the same time. Under the pressure of public opinion, Daniel and Chloe's lives are in complete disarray. Not only do they have to face company investigations and accusations from coworkers, but they also have to endure abuse and attacks from the internet. Their photos and personal information have been circulated on the internet, and some people have even conducted human searches on them and threatened to take revenge on them. For a while, Daniel and Chloe were the ones who were being hunted down. They were like two birds of prey, terrified all day long that the next moment would be a catastrophe. There was no pleasure in Ethan's heart as he watched Daniel and Chloe's suffering. He felt a pang of emptiness and confusion, and he wondered if his revenge had any meaning at all. Though the flame of vengeance still burns in Ethan's heart, an unspeakable fatigue creeps in as time passes. He begins to question the meaning of his revenge and to reflect on how the experience has changed him. A few months later, Ethan received a call from his attorney informing him that he needed to return to his home city to handle the transfer of his property. It was part of his and Chloe's divorce settlement, and the house that held their memories for more than 2 decades ended up in Ethan's possession. Hanging up the phone, Ethan had mixed feelings. He knew that when he went back this time, he would inevitably face Chloe again. It's been a long time since their last showdown. Ethan embarks on a flight to his hometown and looks back on everything that has happened during this time as if it were a nightmare. The plane landed and Ethan was back in a familiar and unfamiliar city. Everything is still the same as before, but everything has changed again. As promised, Ethan and Chloe met at the lawyer's office. Chloe was much thinner and paler than Ethan remembered, with only a hint of stubbornness remaining in her eyes. Ethan realizes that he still has a trace of unbreakable emotion for the woman in front of him, but that emotion has long since been sapped by betrayal and hurt, leaving only complexity and bitterness. Are you okay? Chloe took the lead in breaking the silence, her voice a little raspy. Fine. Ethan's answer was short and cold. The two signed the documents related to the transfer of the property in the presence of an attorney. The whole thing was calm and somewhat depressing. No arguments, no tears, just businesslike indifference. What are you going to do with the house when it's yours? Chloe asked, a hint of tentativeness in her tone. Haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I'll sell it. Ethan replied, not wanting to dwell on the subject. After the formalities were completed, the two walked out of the lawyer's office. Let's have dinner together, Chloe said suddenly. Ethan hesitated, but nodded. He knew that there needed to be closure between them, one way or another. The two arrived at a restaurant they used to frequent and ordered familiar dishes, but neither had much of an appetite. How are you and Daniel doing? Ethan asked, keeping his tone as calm as possible. Chloe smiled bitterly. What else? He's disgraced and I've lost my job. We are over. Ethan was silent. He didn't know what to say. He had thought that he would be happy to see what happened to Chloe and Daniel, but at the moment, his heart was filled with mixed emotions. Do you hate me? Chloe asked, a hint of sadness in her eyes. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't know how to answer that question. Hate it? Of course I hate it. But what does hate solve? I know I'm sorry to you, and I'm sorry to Olivia. I've ruined this family, and I've ruined your trust in me. Chloe's tears finally managed to fall. I never thought things would turn out this way. I was just tired of the day-to-day humdrum life. I wanted a little excitement, something different. So you chose to betray me and our marriage? Ethan's voice held a hint of anger. I know I was wrong. I really do. Chloe cried. I'd give anything to make up for my mistake. If only you'd give me a chance. Ethan's heart stung as he watched Chloe cry out in pain. He remembered the sweet times they had had, the storms they had weathered together, and the promises they had made to each other. Chloe, I used to think that we would go on until we were gray. Ethan's voice choked a little. I never thought that you would betray me, betray our marriage. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm really sorry. Chloe sobbed. Let bygones be bygones. Ethan said with a sigh, we all need to start new lives. That night, Ethan and Chloe talked a lot, reminiscing about the past and talking about their future plans. Though the wounds between them can't be fully healed, at least they both try to let go of their hatred and face the future. Before returning to California, Ethan went to visit some old friends. From his friends, he learns more about Daniel and Chloe. Daniel lost his job, his family, and his footing in the industry. His reputation is in tatters, and no one wants to work with him anymore. Susan retaliates fiercely, such as hiring a private investigator to take intimate photos of Daniel and Chloe, and suing for divorce when Daniel loses his job, demanding that he get out of the house. Susan also found Chloe and humiliated her. All of this makes things worse for Daniel and Chloe. Daniel, who used to be so popular, is now like a street rat that everyone wants to beat up. And Chloe's life is not easy. She lost her job and her reputation, and it's hard for her to find another job in the same position. She tried to contact some of her former friends and coworkers, but most of them shunned her. She then realized what it meant for people to go away and what it meant for the world to be cold. Hearing this news, Ethan's heart did not feel the slightest thrill of vengeance. He felt a pang of emptiness and loss, and he wondered if what he had been doing all this time had any meaning at all. Back in California, Ethan receives a letter from Chloe. In the letter, Chloe expressed her deep remorse and admitted her mistakes. She writes that she has lost so much and understands Ethan's initial warning. She apologized for the hurt Ethan had caused and wished him well. Chloe ended her letter by writing, "Ethan, I know it's not possible between us anymore, but I still want to say thank you for ever loving me. I hope you can find happiness that is truly yours." After reading Chloe's letter, Ethan's feelings could not be calmed for a long time. He stood in front of the window, looking out at the ocean in the distance and thinking. He remembers Chloe's smile, the happy times they spent together, and the pain and hurt she caused him. The letter threw itself like a boulder into a lake he had been trying to calm, sending huge ripples. All those emotions that had been settling down, the anger, the disappointment, and the complex feelings for Chloe that had been deliberately suppressed, came tumbling back up again. He put the letter away in the deepest part of the drawer. He knew that this letter would become a special memory in his life, a memory of betrayal, revenge, and forgiveness. Over the next few days, Ethan struggled to refocus his life on his work and Olivia. He tries to forget the past and start a new life. But Chloe's letter and the brief trip back home was a seed that took root in his heart, a constant reminder of a past that was not yet fully resolved. Life seemed to be returning to peace, and Ethan moved into a new apartment in California, bright and spacious with a balcony overlooking the ocean. He continued to work hard at the branch with a strong track record and gradually integrated into local life. Olivia continues to be his greatest comfort, and the father-daughter relationship has grown even closer. Ethan tries to seal away all memories of Chloe, including the letter he's pressed into the deepest part of his drawer. However, fate always seems to like to play jokes. As Ethan struggles to turn over a new leaf, Chloe re-enters his life in an unexpected way. One weekend evening, Ethan was drinking alone at a bar he frequented. Located near Santa Monica Beach, this bar has vintage decor and a relaxed atmosphere with a live band playing every night. Ethan loves the ambience of the place and also enjoys sitting quietly at the bar by himself, watching the crowds come and go and contemplating what's on his mind. Suddenly, there's a commotion in the doorway of the bar, and Ethan looks up to see a familiar figure in the doorway. Olivia. She actually walked in with Chloe. Ethan felt a wave of vertigo. He never expected to see Chloe here, let alone Olivia bring her here. He subconsciously tried to dodge, but it was too late. Olivia has seen him and pulls Chloe towards him. "Daddy, why are you drinking here alone?" Olivia asked with a smile, a hint of urgency in her tone that Ethan sensed but couldn't understand. "Do you mind if I bring Sister Chloe over for a break?" Ethan looked at Chloe standing next to Olivia, who was even more haggard than the last time they'd seen each other, her eyes troubled and constricted. "What are you doing here?" Ethan's voice was a little dry. "I came to see Olivia," Chloe whispered, not daring to look Ethan in the eye. "Have a seat." Ethan gestured to the empty seat beside him, his tone as calm as he could keep it. Olivia sat next to Ethan and Chloe sat on Olivia's other side. None of the three spoke for a while, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward. "What would you guys like to drink?" Ethan asked, trying to break the silence. "I'll do it," Olivia said, getting up to go to the bar. "Sister Chloe, as usual?" Chloe nodded and didn't say anything. After Olivia left, a deeper silence fell between Ethan and Chloe. Ethan peeked in on Chloe, who looked a little paler than her actual age in a simple dress with no makeup and her hair tied casually behind her head. "Are you okay?" Eventually, it was Ethan who opened his mouth first. "Fine," Chloe's answer was short, her head down as she fiddled with the coaster in her hand. What made Olivia think to bring you here? Ethan asked, unable to figure out Olivia's intentions. She said, she said you might need to see me? Chloe's voice was getting lower. Ethan, I know you're still mad at me, angry, but I really… Let bygones be bygones. Ethan interrupted Chloe. We all need to move on. Just then, the band in the bar started playing a soothing blues music. A man walks up to Chloe and asks her to dance. Chloe froze, and she glanced at Ethan with a hint of hesitation and tentativeness in her eyes. Ethan didn't say anything. He just looked at Chloe quietly. Chloe bit her lip and finally declined the man's invitation. Thanks, I don't want to dance. The man shrugged and turned away. However, it's not long before another man comes along and asks Chloe to dance. This time, before Chloe could refuse, Ethan suddenly stood up. She's my wife, and she doesn't dance. Ethan's voice was not loud, but his tone was firm and unquestioning. The man froze for a moment, looked at Ethan, then at Chloe, and then left unhappily. Chloe looks at Ethan with surprise and mixed emotions in her eyes. Why would you say that? I'm telling the truth. Ethan looked Chloe in the eye and said, word for word, even though we're separated, legally, you're still my wife. Chloe's eyes welled up with tears, and she covered her mouth, trying not to cry out. Let's go. Ethan took Chloe's hand and headed out of the bar. Olivia watched their backs as they left, a wistful smile on her face. Ethan takes Chloe to the beach, and they walk slowly along the sand. The sea breeze blew gently against their faces with a faint hint of saltiness. Remember when we used to walk here? Ethan said suddenly. Remember? Chloe's voice caught a little in her throat. We were young and full of ideas for the future. Yeah, it was so nice back then. Ethan sighed. Unfortunately, there's no going back. Ethan, Chloe wanted to say. Stop it, Chloe. Ethan cut her off. I know what you're trying to say, but it's too late. No, Ethan, listen to me. Chloe stops and looks Ethan seriously in the eyes. I know I made an unforgivable mistake once. I hurt you and I hurt this family. I've been reflecting on it, and what has happened in the meantime, and what you said in your letter, has made me realize a lot of things. I really know that I was wrong, and I know that it is impossible for us to go back to the past, but I hope that you can give me a chance to make up for my faults and let me make a new life. Ethan was silent as he watched Chloe's tearful face, a pang throbbing in his heart. Ethan, I know you hate me, but I know more than anything that you still have me in your heart, just as I still have you in mine. Chloe continued, there's no way that our relationship of so many years is gone. I admit, I lost myself once, but I'm sober now. I don't need you to forgive me. I just want you to give me a chance to prove myself. How are you going to prove it? Ethan asked, a hint of relief in his tone. I will prove it with my actions. Chloe said firmly, I'll work hard, take care of Olivia, and I'll do everything I can to help you. I know I've let you down before, but I'll spend the rest of my life making up for my mistakes. Ethan looked into Chloe's determined eyes and felt a mixture of emotions. He knew that Chloe was serious and that she really wanted to change. Chloe, you know, I used to really hate you so much that I couldn't wait to destroy you and Daniel with my own hands. Ethan said slowly, but this time around, and especially the letter you wrote me, has made me start to reflect on what I really want. Does revenge really bring me happiness? Will destroying you and Daniel bring me true relief? I realized I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I can't derive pleasure from someone else's pain, and I don't want the hate to continue to consume my life. Ethan, Chloe's tears flowed even harder. But, Ethan turned the tables. That doesn't mean I forgive you. I will never forget what you did to me, the betrayal of our marriage. I just don't want to keep living in hate anymore. I want to give myself a chance, and I want to give you a chance for us both to start over. Ethan, thank you. Thank you. Chloe sobbed uncontrollably as she threw herself into Ethan's arms and hugged him tightly. Ethan patted Chloe's back gently, feeling a lot of emotions in his heart. He didn't know if he was doing the right thing, but he knew that it was the truest thing in his heart at the moment. The next morning, Ethan and Chloe have an honest conversation. They talked about everything from the past, including betrayal, revenge, and how they felt about each other. They also talk about the future and what they expect from the relationship. Ethan, I know we still have a lot of issues to work out between us, but I'm willing to work with you on them. Chloe said, I won't ask for your forgiveness anymore, but I'll show you with my actions that I deserve another chance. Chloe, it's going to take time for me to get used to all of this too. Ethan said, I don't know if we'll end up together, but I'm willing to try, for the sake of what we had and for the sake of Olivia. Eventually, they came to a tentative agreement. They would try to start over, get along as friends, and give each other some time and space to repair the scarred relationship. As for what the future holds, no one knows. But at least, they are both willing to try once for the sake of this family, for the sake of each other whom they once loved deeply. At the end of the story, Ethan and Chloe stood side by side on the beach, watching the waves rise and fall in the distance. The sunlight poured over them, giving them a golden glow. There was a faint smile on their faces, and their eyes were full of hope for the future. Do you think we can go back in time? Chloe asked softly. Ethan shook his head. There's no going back, Chloe, but we can make a new future together. Chloe nodded as she rested her head gently on Ethan's shoulder, and the two of them looked off into the distance together for a long time. There was still a long road ahead, and it was still an unknown whether they could come back together again. But at least, in this moment, they both chose to let go of their hatred, chose to forgive and release, chose to give each other a chance to start over. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.